with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday, and welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook live stream here on Fantasy Alarm's YouTube channels. I am James Grande, and I'm joined by nobody. It's just me today. John and Pemba out there in Las Vegas. Salute to John for doing this morning's recording for the 3-game main slate we have on tap. The last slate we have on tap before the All-Star break. They do, as I was peeking at DraftKings earlier, they do have a slate available for showdown slate available for the All-Star game. But we do have this is the last slate before the break. Just 3 games. We're going to go game by game today. This is not going to be a long stream. So if you have any questions, get them in as early as possible. I'm looking to, possibly get out of here at 5:30, 5:40 if we're getting enough questions. But going to go game by game. Going to break down the slate that way. We've had a lot of news come through the wire. Obviously, Giannis being downgraded to questionable was the main course of action. I know Anthony Edwards is on the injury report. He went through shoot around this morning. Memphis on a back-to-back. We saw a lot of Memphis guys get downgraded to either doubtful, questionable, or out. So we'll get into all of that as well. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. So let's get into things. And again, we'll go game by game. This won't take very long. If you have questions, please get them in. Because again, I'm only going to stay for as long as everyone's asking questions for after the breakdown. So if you have any questions, please get in to the stream now. So let's just get into things. We'll start with Milwaukee, Memphis. This game, as it currently stands, has a let me update my my spreads here. 223 over under. Milwaukee is giving the Memphis Grizzlies 11.5 points on the road. That is factoring in Giannis being in, obviously, but now we do not have official status update of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And we'll start on the Milwaukee side, where Giannis has been downgraded to questionable with the knee that he has been listed probable for as long as I remember. It's been probable. Well, they're playing Memphis last day before the break. This seems like a very easy thing to figure out. Giannis downgraded does not bode well for him. We will see if he plays. Damian Lillard is listed as probable, so it is likely that he goes, and maybe it is one of these Dame time situations. So we should potentially, Craig. That I mean, you're not wrong, right? The sports books aren't going to. The line's not going to move as long as Giannis is listed questionable. Unless you saw something significant in the books, it's likely that that's not. Also, I mean, Milwaukee's a better team than Memphis, a significantly better team without Memphis regardless. I mean, Memphis has, and we'll talk about the Memphis injury side, they have 9 active bodies this evening. So we'll obviously get into that. But it's not like they are the healthiest team either. So right now, as long as Giannis is in, it's an 11.5 point spread, which is, if I remember correctly, where it opened. So it hasn't moved at all today. We'll see what happens throughout the night. 8:30 lock, 8:30 Eastern lock tonight, by the way, guys. 8:30. This was the latest slate it's been all year. Leave it to the last day before the All-Star break for it to drag on, right where I'm supposed to be putting down my son for bed. 8:30. Brutal lock time. So back to Milwaukee. Giannis questionable. Dame is probable. Chris Middleton is out, and that's the injury report we have listed for today. Dez, salute to you. Let's get it. As always, we'll talk about the aforementioned lunch pail man in just a second when we get to the Memphis breakdown. But talking about Milwaukee, obviously, if Giannis plays, amongst the stars, he has the highest ceiling on tonight's slate. It's not a star-studded slate. Steph Curry, Giannis, and Anthony Edwards classify as stars, I'd say. Lillard as well. But Giannis obviously has the highest ceiling. If he plays, great. Fire up Giannis, all formats. There's already no Chris Middleton, so we have more assist opportunities, more triple double opportunities for Giannis. If Giannis doesn't play, I'd have a hard time not getting to a lot here. Damian Lillard, 1.5 fantasy points per minute, along with a 38% usage rate without Giannis and Chris Middleton on the year. That's a 10% usage bump from 28% to 38% this year. So Dame is obviously a priority in all formats. Bobby Portis at 6,200 also becomes a priority. He's been very solid for them to begin with. And something that he wasn't doing under Adrian Griffin that he has done under Doc Rivers is start when somebody was out. Brook Lopez just recently had a child's hat tip to Brook Lopez for becoming a father. And we did see Bobby Portis start in those games, and including 27-7 in that Utah one. So Bobby Portis, nearly 3 fantasy points per minute with a 27% usage. Sans Giannis, sans Chris Middleton. Bobby Portis would be an elite play. I think he is fine if Giannis plays. Not a priority, but a priority if Giannis doesn't, because I'd expect Bobby Portis to enter the starting lineup there. Brook Lopez, another guy, it hasn't been great lately. The minutes, they have been involved in a bunch of blowouts. If you looked at the last 4, you'll be like, well, Brook, where'd the minutes go? Well, 30-point game, almost 30-point game, 40-point game, 20-point loss. Like, it's been a lot of blowouts. So, the minutes prior to that, and the fact that, he had a child and missed some time in the middle of that. Look at the minutes before that. I mean, we're talking about 35 plus minutes every single night. So Brook Lopez for sure back in play if Giannis is out. He's over right around a fantasy point per minute. Sans Giannis and Middleton. If Giannis plays, again, similar bucket to Bobby Portis, as I alluded to. Thank you guys for joining. As you can tell, I'm riding solo today. If you have questions, please get them in. This is going to be a quick show. And if there's no questions by the end of the breakdown, I'm going to peace out. 8-town down. So please make sure you get your questions in if you have them when I'm doing the game-by-game breakdown. Malik Beasley's been pretty good lately. The minutes are back on the rise. Doc Rivers seems to like the floor spacing from Malik Beasley. I definitely think long-term, Malik Beasley's a candidate to lose time to someone like Patrick Beverley, just given how bad their perimeter defense has been. And that's the exact reason why they went and acquired Patrick Beverley. When that will happen, I don't know, but it could happen at any point. Beasley at 5K is fine as the last piece in. I would definitely have some more interest in some peripherals or in some secondary pieces like Jay Crowder or like a Pat Connaughton if Giannis were to sit, just based on who they start. But TBD on that, because we don't have a starting lineup in front of us or even the statuses of Giannis. So, Giannis and Dame are the 2 priorities here. Portis, Lopez, Beasley, Crowder, Connaughton, all secondary plays until we get more news. And thankfully, this is the 8:30 game, because this is where mostly all the news is. And I say that because when we flip over to the Memphis side, it just doesn't get any better. When you think it can get any better, when you think it's going to get better, possibly the days go by and you think that they're going to get healthier, they just decide, you know what, second leg of a back-to-back, we're just going to rule everybody out. Salute to you, DePrince. Welcome to the stream. I'm happy you just missed the Milwaukee Bucks side of things. You haven't missed much because we're waiting on the status of Giannis Antetokounmpo, so we don't really we don't have much. Yeah, Dwayne, it is 8. Doesn't help that it's late. Doesn't help that there's only 3 games, and yesterday there was 13. So maybe the NBA scheduling could have divvied it up a little better, But I digress. On to the Memphis side of things. They have 9 active bodies. So these are the players with no injury designations tonight. Jordan Goodwin, who's on a 10-day contract. Jacob Gilliard, who's a two-way player. Vince Williams, Zaire Williams, Yuta Watanabe, Gigi Jackson, Santi Aldama, Trey Jemison, and Lamar Stevens. Those are the 9. That is barring the doubtful Jaren Jackson doesn't play. That is barring the Luke Kennard questionable doesn't play. And maybe Kennard does play, but he has really not played back-to-backs of late. So after playing 30 minutes last night, I'm a little uncertain Kennard goes. I would lean towards the doubtful side of that questionable tag. John Concher is listed as doubtful. So we're looking at a really short-handed Memphis team. I'm intrigued a lot of these pieces. Vince Williams, obviously, who Dez alluded to the lunch pail man. Well, that's Vince Williams. Clocks in, clocks out, does his job extremely well, goes home. On a night, he goes 1 of 6 from the floor last night. 12 free throw attempts, nearly triple-doubled, and 4 stocks with the blocks and steals there. It was a really solid outing for Williams, who is just one of those guys. He does not need to be offensive first to be really good in a fantasy output. Now, 6,500 is obviously getting back up to one of the most expensive price tags. In fact, $100 less than his priciest that he's been this year on DraftKings. So, like, there's that. I do like the shooting guard, small forward eligibility. That's a bonus. So if you do want to get to Vince Williams, no problems there. I think Santi Aldama figures to get somewhere close to these minutes, the 29, 32, 37. The 22 minutes last night wasn't great. That definitely had a lot to do with, one, Jaren Jackson being there, 2, Gigi Jackson's explosion that he had. So, yeah, Craig, there are elite young players. The league is in good hands. We're gonna miss the likes of LeBron and Steph and that era when they move on and retire to whatever they're gonna do after basketball. But there are some amazing talents that we have to look forward to watching for the next 15 or so years. So couldn't agree more there with you on that front. One of them, and probably a lottery pick, if not for everything that happened with him after his or during his season at South Carolina last year, Gigi Jackson, who is the youngest player in the league, and it has not acted like it. We have seen the emergence of Gigi Jackson, not just since the first game he played where he had that TNT interview and was really giddy with Shaq, which was a cool sight to see. But look at this production from Gigi Jackson. First off, he gets on the floor, and you love this from from the guys you use. He is going to shoot the basketball. He's double-digit shot attempts in his last 5 games. Double-digit scoring in each of those games. 16+ actual points. He's a good rebounder as well. And when you look at who Memphis is down, and I'll just key in on the big 4 of Ja, Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart. This guy has a 25% usage rate, averaging 1.06 fantasy points per minute. Like, that's elite production for 4,900. And you kind of see this here. He's gone over 30 fantasy points in 4 of the last 5, and he's gone over 5x in each of the last 5. And yet, during this span, his price has dipped back below $5,000. Usually we've seen DraftKings, the algorithm, increase pricing on second legs of a back-to-back. No siree, Bob. Not tonight with Gregory Gigi Jackson. He is a core play for me tonight. I'm getting Gigi Jackson in all my lineups because, Memphis is so shorthanded, and we're going to see a lot of him extended here. I'm interested in the guard room, especially if and when Luke Kennard is ruled out. Jordan Goodwin is a very good basketball player who just ran into an unfortunate situation in Phoenix. We saw it earlier in the year when he was playing a bunch of minutes for Phoenix, especially this stretch run, constantly giving us 20+ fantasy points. And we saw him get up there in minutes as well. Even in this game, played 30 minutes earlier in the season. Made his debut for the Memphis Grizzlies last time out, 24 minutes, 10-3-3, 1-1, 23 fantasy points, $4,400. We know Milwaukee does have a problem guarding guards, and I'm just highly interested in Jordan Goodwin. We know Scottie Pippen's out. We know Derrick Rose is out. We know John Concher's all but out. The likelihood of Kennard playing is low. Their guard room is Vince Williams is pretty much stapled into the three. And then it's Jordan Goodwin, Jacob Gilyard, and Zaire Williams. That is their guard. That is their guard room. And Zaire Williams missed, over 2 weeks. So how long or how much is he going to be extended? So I definitely am interested in Jordan Goodwin. Definitely have some interest in Jacob Gilyard if he's starting. We'll see if he's see what they do in their starting lineup. Zaire Williams is a punt play. Obviously, returned yesterday, played 22 minutes. Wasn't great. He does have a low floor, but he also has a high ceiling, as we've seen in this Orlando game. So I'm good getting to Zaire. I'm not totally sold on the Watanabe thing. He did play 25 minutes in his debut. DMP'd yesterday. So very, very shaky unless we were to see him in the starting lineup. Trey Jemison, we've seen him start in games that Jaren Jackson was out. We've also seen him come off the bench. He obviously I prefer him to start. And then there's Lamar Stevens, who has probably been the most consistent guy off this Memphis bench, at least of their new acquisitions. And we just had the quote from S. Penny, aka Sean Penny. And I say AKA because S. Penny's his real name. Sean Penny's his AKA. Lamar Stevens listed last on the list because he's the least likely to get minutes. No, I do think I think he's not. That is not the case. I'm not sure why that list, possibly just based on position. Because if you look at the list in order, maybe they're using Lamar Stevens as a center in that instance, and Lamar Stevens is on DraftKings listed as center. They don't have many options to play center, right? Like Santi Aldama, 6'10", does profile more as a forward. Trey Jemison is realistically the only center they would have active tonight. So I think it's more so just seeing, okay, I can see Lamar Stevens getting some run at the 5 tonight. So that's the only reason. I think he is locked and loaded for 20 plus minutes, and we've seen what that's looked like in his 2 games with Memphis. 20 plus minutes, that's all Lamar Stevens needed. 30 fantasy points, almost a double-double. 22 fantasy points, almost a double-double. The blocks have been really nice. And again, very short-handed team. I'm very, very in on Lamar Stevenson. I think he is a core member of the Memphis team. And Donnie getting in here asking how many Memphis Grizzlies are too much. On a 3-game slate, you need to get funky, right? I would max 5. I'm not saying I'm going to for sure, but if I'm playing multiple lineups and they have 9 guys, I would max 5 Grizzlies and, hope they stay close. But we've talked about Milwaukee a lot this year. They've played down to competition often and outright lost in some of these games. So I wouldn't be surprised if a letdown game looking towards the break. Memphis these guys want to play basketball because, Jordan Goodwin's on a 10-day contract. No one on Milwaukee is. They're looking forward towards the break. So I would max 5, more comfortable going 4. But if you want to get 5 and that gets you to Steph, or that gets you to Giannis if he plays, and that gets you to Dame if he plays, and Anthony Edwards, and so be it. So I think you can get to 5. Let's move on to Golden State, Utah. This is the best game on the board in terms of total 240.5 implied points over at BetMGM. Golden State giving 1.5 points to Utah on the road. Both teams on a back-to-back. The Warriors only have Chris Paul on their injury report. Everything else is clean. Obviously, we'll see if that remains the case throughout the night. But as of right now, it is just Chris Paul on the injury report. I think the Warriors are a little bit interesting. A lot of bit interesting. Steph Curry obviously has been playing his best basketball of late, especially from a fantasy perspective. 54 plus fantasy points in 4 straight games. I don't think this is a coincidence at all where Draymond Green is on the floor. I mean, we've seen the connection that those two have had forever. Steph Curry feeds off Draymond Green, and now we're getting the best production of the year with Draymond being extended to his most minutes. So I love Steph Curry at 9,600. No problems getting to him. I'm interested in Jonathan Kuminga. The games have been a little disappointing lately. We're going on a 6 stretch of 6, 7, 8x every single night. The minutes are still there for Kuminga. The peripheral stats were really there last night. Just we didn't get the scoring game that we've, kind of grown to be used to. So I'm good getting the Kuminga in tournaments, 6,700, really good price tag. Also good getting the Draymond in tournaments. Was in foul trouble, got hurt, and left the game last night. Should be good because he passed the concussion protocols. Did not show up on the injury report today, so TBD. But as long as he's not listed, we should expect Draymond to go. And if he makes shots, like he's obviously a guy who can triple double. So I like Draymond against Utah. Really good pace environment there. Brandon Pajemski has been awesome, flat out awesome. And he wasn't making shots and still giving you 30 plus fantasy points a night. And over the last 3 games, look at that, starting to make shots, multiple threes in 3 straight games. The minutes have continuously been there, other than the Utah blowout, which again, everyone's minutes were down. Definitely in on Pajemski at 61. If you want to get there, another pace up spot. Clay, it's one of those, like, I know he was just good in this exact spot a few nights ago. I understand it. Utah's a bad defensive team who's committing to playing their young guys, Keyonte George in the starting lineup. So, if you want to get to Clay, fine. It's not my favorite place on the second leg of a back-to-back. Especially, we've seen Clay, if he's not playing well, he's been replaced in crunch time. So I am not necessarily interested in much Clay. And then everyone else is kind of secondary pieces. Like, you can get to Wiggins. He's also been good. But, last night was definitely aided by 4 steals. So you have to factor that in. 5,100 is a fine price tag, not anything that I'm like really interested in. Only other name I'd throw is like a dart throw at Gary Payton. But even then, like, why wouldn't we just play the Memphis value at that point? So let's go over to the Utah side. I think Utah is definitely intriguing in this 240.5 game total. No one on the Utah injury report either. Clean injury report for them. I'm a little indifferent about most of the top guys. Obviously, Lauri Markkanen is a guy you can use in tournaments. He is definitely playing his worst basketball. I don't think the peripherals should be shocking, considering they've recently turned to the Walker Kessler starting lineup. So now you have John Collins and Walker Kessler alongside Lauri Markkanen, who's playing more of that small forward he used to play last year and in Cleveland. So, I'm not really in love with Markkanen. I know he has a very high ceiling, so you can definitely get to him in tournaments. Not my favorite play. John Collins, going to play like 28 to 30 minutes. He has been a great, and I mean great, rebounder for them this year. He's been a walking double-double. I'm okay getting to Collins at 66. I think he has a safe floor if you want to play him in a cash game. I'm sad that the Collins Sexton minutes are what they are, because he was playing out of his freaking mind. But I understand the want and need to shift to a Keyonte George led team. That was what they did prior to the Keyonte George injury, and you can't long term just not start Keyonte George because he got hurt. Shout out Drew Bledsoe, I guess, right? So I do like Sexton in tournaments, 6,400. Just know he's not going to play that 35, 40 minutes that he was playing earlier in the year. I have interest in mostly everyone else down here. Jordan Clarkson, 6K, continues to play low to mid 30s minutes, takes a lot of shots. He has a triple-double this year. He is good. He's a good and willing passer at times. So I definitely think you can get to Jordan Clarkson in tournaments here. 32 fantasy points the other night against Golden State. Walker Kessler, I mean, the blocks have been insane for Walker Kessler. These Utah starters / closers lost out on 3 minutes of blowout run last night. So we could have seen Kessler hit 30 minutes because he was in that closing lineup before the blowout. Would have probably approached another double-double. Would have probably approached another 30 fantasy points. So if you want to get to Walker Kessler or Blocker Kessler, as we call him in these parts, I'm definitely interested there. And before I move on, please, guys, for everyone tuning in, thank you, first and foremost. We go live every Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please hit the like button below, subscribe to the channel. We just went over 6,000 subs. So big shout out to you guys and the family. Please get your questions in because I'm not going for the full hour today. I want to get to everyone's questions if you have them before I get out of here. And that's going to pretty much be if there's no more questions after the 3-game breakdown, then I'm going to skedaddle. I have some Chipotle calling my name. So, got it. I mean, who's not going to leave the stream for a good Chipotle bowl? And even if you want to leave a comment on what you get at Chipotle, do so. Because I mean, who doesn't like Chipotle? I think if you don't, I mean, I'm just gonna block you. So we can get that out of the way now. Sean saying he has 4 Grizzlies cramming in Dame, Steph, and Gobert. Yeah, I think that's going to be a very popular approach. And so I like that. Sean Donnie is in agreement with you. And the Prince is saying. So we should start with Memphis first. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to, but like you could also build your lineup and then see what you have for the remaining Memphis pieces. Because again, they're right now trending towards 9 active bodies. If everyone questionable or out doesn't play, so keep that in mind. And of course, Donnie, we're never gonna not answer the Chipotle call. The Chipotle is on the mind 24/7. Craig, we appreciate we very much so appreciate that. The kind words are very humbling. Hidden Darts, I love you. Not just Chipotle, I love you too. You're always commenting. You're a big part of why we do this every day. And Sean, again, a little scary fading Portis and or Lopez if Giannis is out. So I agree. And we'll get to the Gobert breakdown in a few. But I agree. That also could lead you to playing less Memphis, right? But that's all depending on your lineup construction. So we will. And Stacks, salute to you for showing into the show 4 hours early today. I didn't not leaving that comment by the wayside. I saw your comment about 1 Eastern today. I turned to my wife and I was like, we just got a comment from our boy Stacks Money Sign at 1 p.m. for the live stream. And I don't know if he woke up on the wrong side of the bed, but we don't go live for another 4 hours. So salute to you, Stacks. I mean, so this is a good question. Bowl or burrito? It's a bowl if you're taking it home, burrito if you're eating it there, because you don't want it to get soggy, right? Depending on what you're getting in the bowl. If you're eating in the restaurant, you go burrito. Also, just you got to watch people in front of you. You watch the Chipotle burrito roller, right? If they're looking like they're struggling, maybe you just go bowl instead in general, even if you're eating in a restaurant. I'm a pro, Des. I've eaten I don't eat Chipotle as much as Mikal Bridges does, but I do eat Chipotle quite often. Rest of the Utah breakdown, I like Walker Kessler, as I mentioned. I love Keyonte George. We're big Keyonte George fans here. Love the 33 minutes. Love the minutes in general since entering the starting lineup, even in nights where he's struggling. 4,700 is just too cheap for a starting point guard in a really good pace environment. 240 total. 30 fantasy points or more in 3 of the last 5. So I like Keyonte George 47. I do think THT is a little bit interesting. Not like I'm not gonna hitch my wagon to THT, but like it is good to see him back in the rotation because he is a good fantasy point per minute guy. 16 minutes, like as a pivot away from some of the Memphis value, if you wanted to. Maybe if he has another game like he did against Golden State, maybe he plays closer to 20 minutes, right? So I don't mind a little THT if you're playing multiple lineups. It's not a one lineup guy. It's not a one lineup play. I'm not playing THT if I'm playing one lineup, but if you're playing a bunch, if you're playing 20 lineups, if you're playing 150 lineups, I do have interest, 10% or so, 5 to 10%, somewhere in that range. Let's shift over to the last game of the slate. Again, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. I see 74 people in here. I believe that we can smash the like button down there. We can subscribe to the channel. We're live every Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. We also have a morning preview show. I shouldn't even say morning. We record it the night before, so you guys can even catch that up. If you're a night owl, you can catch the show the night before. Book Skippa says, I'm not a fan of playing the Grizz and Blazers. Why couldn't they play yesterday? You're not wrong. You're not wrong, Book. You're not wrong at all. It is tough sledding to play both those teams at times. And we're going to talk about Portland in a second. The Memphis Portland game. This is the worst game on the board. 215.5 over under. Minnesota 9.5 point road favorites. On the Minnesota side, we have Anthony Edwards listed as questionable. He did go through morning shoot around, so it looks more like a fake injury tag. We had this same tag on him the other day. He played through it. It was actually in this same game on the second leg of a back-to-back in Portland. Had a pretty good game. 41 actual, 56 fantasy points. Anthony Edwards, really good at basketball. And $8,700 is a too cheap price tag for a guy that should just typically be 9K or more. I mean, you want to start talking about recent production. 26 plus actual points in 5 straight games, or 4 of the last 5. 45 plus DraftKings points in 5 straight games. And this is a guy that does play upper 30s minutes when games are competitive. They haven't been in many competitive games of late, but he does get upwards of 30, 38, 39 in competitive games. So I love Anthony Edwards if you want to get there. I do like that it's a single-digit spread, because obviously the blowouts could play a factor, but we can't even treat this slate like any situation as a fade because we only have 6 teams. So I have no problem getting Anthony Edwards at all. Same thing with Karl-Anthony Towns. If you end on Towns, look, recency bias can giveth, recency bias can taketh away. Karl-Anthony Towns had 3 first-half fouls in that Portland game, and then just could never establish a rhythm. Naz Reid was really good off the bench. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was really good off the bench. Kyle Anderson was really good off the bench for them. So, they just went a different direction. Chris Finch, head coach, went a different direction. But I'm willing to go back to the well with Towns if you feel comfortable doing so. If you want to get to 7,700, he's not checking in. The last time I looked, let's look at the first ownership update. I don't believe Towns was 24%. He's the 4th highest rostered Timberwolf on tonight. So do you think the Grizzlies hold value if Anthony sits? So we'll play that scenario out that he sits. I don't think he sits. He went through shoot around, final game before the All-Star break. I think he plays, especially where they are in the standings. Their situation matters a lot more, I would say, than Milwaukee's does. Kind of like the discrepancy with Milwaukee. The Knicks have lost 4 in a row, so they've gained some cushion. The Sixers are fading. The Pacers have dropped far behind. So Minnesota needs to win every game to stay, atop the West. So I do think Edwards plays, but if he doesn't, I definitely think the Minnesota value perks up quite a bit. We're going to get almost assuredly Nickeil Alexander-Walker into the starting lineup. That's been their plug and play starter every time someone has sat in 1 through 3. You'd obviously get a bump to Kyle Anderson. Towns would become a core play in every single lineup. Rudy Gobert gets a bump. So yeah, I think the Grizzlies still have value, but I don't think they would be as high owned as they are right now compared to what Minnesota would cut into them. I love Rudy Gobert tonight. And I posted a short on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube today. This is a fantastic matchup for Rudy Gobert. Portland is one of the worst teams in terms of DVP against centers this year. Rudy Gobert is obviously in the midst of one of his best stretches in the season, 38 plus DraftKings points in 6 straight games. Pretty insane, by the way, 39.25 exactly in 3 straight here for Rudy Gobert. The minutes, have been amazing for Rudy Gobert, better than really anyone else on the team on a pretty consistent basis. And what I love about this spot, he's had 15 plus rebounds in both games against Portland. Portland is the fourth worst rebounding team overall in the NBA, and they also allow the ninth most offensive rebounds to opposing teams. So you have the best rebounder on the team with 15 plus rebounds in both the matchups, and he's facing a team that does not rebound well. And obviously, DeAndre Ayton's missed long stretches this year, and Duop Reith is more of like your perimeter center play. But I love Rudy Gobert in this spot. I think this is potentially a ceiling game as long as it stays competitive. So Gobert at 75, really solid. He is getting ownership. It's not a like surprise. 27%. That's a 27.5, I should say. Second highest on the team. Faisal, my boy, I am riding solo today. Shout out Jason Derulo. I think Jason Derulo. I don't know. I think so. Jay, do you like Jay Crowder if free sits? Yeah, I think he is fine. Is he my preferred play over like a Dame Portis? No, I think Dame Portis Brolo would be the top three options for you there. Malik Beasley's been a fantasy point per minute guy in that instance too. I would probably rank Beasley ahead of Crowder. Also, hard to ignore these minutes that Crowder played when they were depleted without Dame. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with Crowder. But still, I would still say secondary tier, even if Freak doesn't play. Andrew, yes, that Andrew is here. He wants you to know he's here twice. Maybe he's on two different computers on the screen. He's two of the 87 people tuning in right now. And again, guys, please hit the like button. It goes a long way on the YouTube algorithms, and it really helps us. And subscribe to the channel. We just went over 6,000. Thanks to you guys out there. This is the last slate before the All-Star break, too. So the last time you're going to catch me and John and Terrell on here until after the break. But for all those that don't know, we do go live Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do record a preview show the night before, Monday through Friday, and that goes out in the evening. You can check it out then. You can check it out in the morning. So please continue to support the channel the way you guys have done. Has been amazing. When there are back-to-back games with the same two teams, how much do you take the previous game into consideration? I mean, you have to, but also like there's obviously situations that are unlikely to repeat themselves, right? Book Karl-Anthony Towns picking up 3 first-half fouls. Yes, he is someone who fouls at times, but like, am I not playing Karl-Anthony Towns tonight because he had 3 fouls last game? No, I would play Karl-Anthony Towns because he's a good fantasy point per minute guy. So like, I'm not going to completely factor in that Karl-Anthony Towns had 3. Now, Anthony Edwards had 40 actual. Like, yeah, this is a good matchup for Anthony Edwards. They're a bad defensive team. This is a great spot for Rudy Gobert. They're a bad rebounding team, right? So these numbers aren't surprising. So like, there's things that are factored in. There's also things like foul trouble that are kind of not something that I'm considering all too much. Salute to you, Des, for always asking the peeps to hit the like button. Moving down the Minnesota player pool, Mike Conley is fine. Did see his minutes cut into a little bit by Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Conley has not shot the ball too well the last few games outside of the Milwaukee game. And his stretch is really gone throughout the whole month. And NAW has shot the ball really well. So, like, if you want to get to Conley, it's fine. The field is getting there. But, again, if this game, if he can't shoot well and NAW continues to shoot the ball well, I wouldn't be surprised to see NAW cut into his time. 26 minutes last game, 24 the game before, 25. Excuse me. Never burped on air, so salute to me. Clearing some space for the Chipotle I'm going to eat after this, as I mentioned. But 24 to 26 minutes in 3 straight games for NAW, and has shot the lights out of the ball. 8 made threes in the last 2 games. Now, he's not that good from 3. He started shooting 38% on the year. So, like, obviously, he's in the midst of he's shooting above his his ceiling, but he's not getting any ownership. 4%. He's still under 4K. If you want to get to some NAW, I don't hate that. Same thing with Naz Reid. We know Naz Reid's a good tournament play. He benefited from the Towns foul trouble last game. 25 minutes, really good floor at 4,600. So if you want to get to Naz Reid, please do so. JD McDaniels, I saw we had a question about McDaniels. I wasn't ignoring it, Stacks. Oh, yeah. I understand how good he is defensively, and I understand the price. And there is a ceiling in terms of minutes for JD McDaniels. Like, that was an overtime game. Uh, it's just such a low floor. The shot volume has not been there. The peripheral stats have fallen off a cliff. Like, he's not grabbing rebound. He can't. Towns, Gobert, and Edwards are crashing the glass, and even Conley to an extent. Kyle Anderson's a good rebounder. Like, Naz Reid, like, I just don't know where the peripheral stats come from. So unless Jaden McDaniels comes out and knocks down a bunch of threes early, it's a last piece in. I prefer the Memphis value to Jaden McDaniels. I even prefer Kyle Anderson on his own team more than Jaden McDaniels. He's been pretty good from a fantasy point per minute perspective the last few games. 23, 21, 27, 6 or more assists. And I think the minutes have been the best thing for Kyle Anderson. We've seen them kind of turn to Kyle Anderson a little bit more. 22, 20, 24 minutes. So I do like Kyle Anderson as a punt play as well. If you do worry about Memphis at all, if you want to gear away from the Memphis value, this is a way to do so. Kyle Anderson, another guy, just 15% rostered, 15% on a smaller slate, not too bad. Hat tip to Monty Morris. He's been in their rotation. I'm not personally going to get there, but he's been salary. If you want, you can get there. Let's wrap this up with the Portland side of things. They have they have some names on their injury report. Malcolm Brogdon's obviously out. Ryan Rupert, Moses Brown, Robert Williams, Shaden Sharp, they're all listed out. The big news is Scoot Henderson. He is listed probable. He has been dealing with this foot sprain for a little bit, but he played 34 minutes through the foot sprain last game after missing, nearly 10 days. So that's good to see. Let's bounce back to the top, though. Anthony Simons, tournaments, has a very high scoring ceiling. When he gets going, he is as good as a scorer as anyone in the league. And I mean that. He is an absolute bucket when he gets going. So Simons is a fine tournament play. Jeremy Grant is a fine tournament play. Very low peripheral floor. Very high scoring ceiling. Not the best matchup. Obviously, this is a super slow paced environment for Portland. So Jeremy Grant, 7,400 in tournaments. DeAndre Ayton's been really good lately. Undoubtedly, really good. If you want to get to him, he just really leaned into Rudy Gobert, who is far and away the defensive player of the year in terms of Vegas odds and really just running away with the award. Give him 22 and 16. Ayton's been at 40 fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. If you want to get to DeAndre Ayton, what do we got for ownership tonight? No one's playing him. 6%. It's a good tournament pivot if he continues to play this way, because for the same price, essentially, and I like Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert's getting 20% more ownership than DeAndre Ayton. And DeAndre Ayton is very much so more likely to shoot. We know that. DeAndre Ayton's not afraid to shoot the basketball. So he's taken double-digit shot attempts now in all but one of his last 10 games. So, in a tournament on a 3-game slate, if you want to pivot to DeAndre Ayton over Rudy Gobert, I definitely don't hate it. You just have to be wary that Rudy Gobert is likely the defensive player of the year this year. So keep that in mind. Scoot Henderson, again, mentioned the 34 minutes. Love that. Love the price. Scoot has definitely come into his own after a slow start. I have no problems getting to Scoot Henderson at 58. He's still going to come off the bench, but that doesn't really matter. It's, comes off the bench and then plays all the minutes because you can play Simons off the ball alongside Scoot. So I like Scoot 58. Jabari's minutes have fallen off. Toumani Camara, really low floor, but he's a good rebounder. He takes a lot of threes when he's out there. He needs to make them. He's only a 30% shooter, but he's going to defend. He's out there to defend Anthony Edwards. That's what they start him for. Same thing with Thibault. Pretty low floor. Delano Banton, is, I mean, what can you say? If S. Penny's in here, shout out to all these ex-Celtics that are just getting time. This might be Sean's favorite slate to play tonight, Sean Penny, because all the ex-Celtics he can play. Lamar Stevens, Delano Banton. Hey, man, 25 and 26 minutes in the 2 games that he's played, and he's got 19 and 27 fantasy points, and the price is still 3,700. It's something that we have to consider here. He is much higher owned than he was the other night. He's about 18% expected rostership for tonight's slate. So 3,700, Delano Banton, probably as far down as I'd go. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, that'll do it. So unless you guys have any more questions, I have a Chipotle bowl that I am going to eat. Williams from last night. Which Williams from last night? Played them both. Who is Williams from last night? 13 games late. There were so many players. What Williams? Zaire? Is that what we're talking about? Zaire Williams? Celtics Williams. Oh, Robert? No. Robert? He can't play. I mean, if you play him, Sean, if you want to play him, you could. You're not going to win, but you could. Right. Stacks says he's everywhere. Good for you, Stacks. I'm happy for you to be everywhere. All right. Well, that'll do it. Appreciate you guys for tuning in again. We do go live every Monday through Friday. Oh, Grant Williams. Got it. Grant Williams. Yes. Grant Williams from last night. He did have another big game, double-double. Salute to Terrell and I for shouting out Grant Williams. 3-0 in the Grant Williams era out there in Charlotte. Not the Trey Mann era, the Grant Williams era. That'll do it for today's show. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. We'll be back after the All-Star break. I believe it's Thursday after the break. So we have about a full week off. Salute to everyone. Smash the like button. Smash the subscription button. We've just went over 6,000 subs on YouTube. We appreciate you guys very much. John couldn't make it this time, but he'll be back after the break. No worries. He'll be back from Vegas safe and sound. We'll catch you guys after the break. Salute to you guys for a great first half of NBA DFS here at fantasyalarm.com.